welcome to the 40k Fireside podcast, where we discuss everything to do with competitive Warhammer 40k with your hosts Vik VJ and David Gaylord.
Ooh, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are, and welcome to the 40k Fireside podcast. Now, the long anticipated, I don't know how long it's been, but Guard finally has some new rules. So I'm going to have my chewing gum now because I'm quite sick. But I wanted to take some time to digest this. I've got my folks over from New Zealand at the moment, so I couldn't get this out like within the hour. But at the same time, give me some chance to reflect on it. So today I'm going to be covering the new Guard Bridgehead Strike Detachment, which is kind of what I anticipated, not knowing. I thought it was either going to be a Scion detachment or a kind of Sentinel-based detachment, because that wasn't described in the Codex leak that happened at the Warhammer World Champs. So, if all you're going to do is listen to this part of the episode, here's the key takeaway. This is a good detachment, and yes, it's a step up from the previous detachment. Definitely. The detachment rule is arguably maybe not as strong, but the combination of enhancements, but more particularly stratagems, are significantly better. It does make you play some units that have recently went up in points, and to get the maximum out of it, or to maximize the detachment rule, you are going to have to play some units that have gone up in points recently. But the be-all, end-all here is that I don't think that that is the correct way to play this detachment, or at least not how I'm going to build it. Now, if you are looking at building it, just a quick reminder, we do have the members section where I'm going to be going forth, recording just after this, actually, an entire video on investigating this detachment at the points level, looking at early list building, and putting some examples on the table on Tabletop Simulator. Okay, without further ado, the detachment rule. Now, as for military infantry models, whenever you make a ranged attack, reroll a hit roll of 1. Now, deceptively different from the Star Shatter Arsenal. Now, I think this is maybe the second best detachment that's been printed, I guess, but they're always in context with one another, so hard to say. I still think Star Shatter Arsenal is significantly better than this, for example. But in Star Shatter, they just gave everything +1 to hit on an objective. Now, what they've crucially done here is they haven't made the mistake of giving you +1 to reroll ones to hit in combat. Otherwise, Bulgrin would be very good. So it's just whenever an infantry unit makes a reroll, makes a ranged attack, you get to reroll a hit roll of 1. Now, previously in the other detachment, rerolls were really hard to come by, but you would also want them on units that wouldn't have natural rerolls. So, for example, the thing I don't like about this detachment, the way that I've developed it, and that for me is kind of contradictory, they emphasize you to play Scions, but Scions also naturally reroll 1s anyway. So it's kind of a little bit, okay, doesn't really make that much sense, in my opinion. But that does lead up other options for playing infantry to take advantage of this rule. So all in all, a good detachment rule. And it does apply to a lot more things outside of Scions, which we're going to explore, and are potentially going to be good options to play as well. Righty-ho. Fire Zone Purge. This is the second half of the detachment. Each time a Militarum Tempestus model, so this is basically the command squad, Aquilons, and then obviously Tempestus Scions. Off the top of my head, I'm not going to make this mistake. I'm pretty sure it's just those 3 units, and the Militarum Tempestus squad can only join Scions, so you can't like splash away a character unit into another unit to try and give them the keyword. I'm just on Wahapedia at the moment, and I'm just double checking. Militarum Tempestus is locked to, yes, those 3 datasheets. Both of which just went up recently. So we got Aquilons that went up and Scions that went up. And I guess in hindsight, they probably put them up because this detachment was coming up. So those 3 units, whenever you arrive from the battlefield, which I think is going to be the most... whenever you arrive on the battlefield from reserves, or you disembark from a transport, add 1 to the wound roll. Really powerful ability. It's not reroll wounds, which is great, because actually a lot of times we would rather have add 1 to the wound roll, because we can get access to reroll wounds elsewhere. But in addition to that, I think what you're going to actually see is most of the time you're going to be triggering this ability from Deep Strike. Disembarking from a transport will be important, I think, and will have its time and place. But the majority of the time, I think it's better and it's going to be more optimal to run these units without transports and simply just have maybe one trick where you do it with a transport. The rest of the time, you just arrive from Deep Strike and shoot. +1 to wound. Okay, keywords. If you take a Militarum Tempestus officer, Scions gain the battle word keyword, battle line keyword. This is what we previously had. And if you're not battle shocked, add 1 to the OC. So pretty nice. This is an upgrade from previously, where you get +1 OC now of Tempestus Scion models in the unit. Yeah, so it only affects Scions, and only Scions gain battle line, but this is good. Now, I'm not 100% sure if you should play Leontis or not. There are some replacements for Leontis' abilities, but they don't hit regiment here. So it's an interesting place to investigate, I think. I still think Leontis is definitely viable in this attachment, and we'll have to see what the command point usage is going to look like. Okay, enhancements. Now, previously we had 4 bad enhancements, I would say. I barely even took Grand Strategist, which is the most viable one out of all of them. So, arguably 4 bad enhancements. I don't think the enhancements here are insane. They are pretty fair, and I think some of them are quite aggressively pointed, if I'm being honest, as well. And in my opinion, hot take early on, I would almost take none of these enhancements. I would potentially take the bottom one. But let's go through them. So, Militarum Tempestus Officer. This one is interesting. Whenever you basically arrive on the battlefield, or if you issue an order by either arriving from Deep Strike, maybe instead of just doing one order, you can hit you can hit 3 different regiment units with that unit. So you can either do that by having that unit in the command phase. It has to be a Tempestus Scion unit command squad. You can either do that by having standing in the command phase and then issuing an order, or you can arrive from Deep Strike on a big go turn maybe, and then order 3 different things at once. Notably, they all have to be the same order, so maybe you're looking at +1 to hit here, or +1 rapid fire, of course, depending on the situation. 25 points, it's quite steep, and orders are going to be pretty abundant in this detachment, so I'm not sure if you're going to play that. Military, this is called Priority Drop Beacon. You could Deep Strike in the first round. There's basically 30 points. Hot take, I also don't think this is going to be good. I don't think you play this enhancement to Deep Strike someone on turn 1, and actually respectively speaking, you could 6-inch Deep Strike someone on turn 1, as we can go see later. There's a stratagem for that. But oftentimes you're going to be Deep Striking a pretty expensive unit, and Deep Striking to shoot something in your opponent's deployment zone is basically suicidal and is seldom going to be a good idea to get the points values out of it. So I don't really think this is going to be good. Notably, there's a uppy downy stratagem as well, and so 50% of the time you're going to go second, at which you could just pay 1 CP to jump up and then come back down anyway. So 30 points, I don't think you're going to take this either. Shroud Projector, Militarum Tempestus Officer again here. Your opponent can't overwatch this unit. 15 points, if you've got 15 points spare, this is a fine upgrade to take. Okay, Infantry Officer model only. So maybe something from the Commissariat if you're playing them. Unfortunately, you can't put this on Epic Heroes. After both players have deployed their armies, select up to 3 regiment-only units and redeploy them. So this is obviously before roll-off. So it's the exact same as what Leonis would have, but you can only target regiment. And in my experience, regiment units were some of the last ones that you would want to target. So the usability of this is quite limited. You can obviously I'm going to double, triple check that Gaunt's Ghost Regiment. I suspect that they don't. Yeah, didn't make an idiot of myself. You can't redeploy Gaunt's Ghost, which is the one pseudo kind of infantry unit you would want to redeploy. You could redeploy Ratlings off the top of my head. Ooh, I'm going to make myself look like a fool here in a second. Ratlings. Where are you? No, they do not have the regiment keyword either. So really, really limited on what you can redeploy here. And typically speaking, you would either redeploy your tank commanders to put them in reserve or to get better angles, or you would redeploy Gaunt's Ghosts after infiltrating them to block your opponent. So you can't use that either. So realistically speaking, this is not a very good enhancement either, I don't think. And between the triple order, which I think is maybe one of the more useful ones, really, because you can kind of see if you have a go turn, you could drop 3 orders at the same time. But if you're playing Gaunt's Ghost, you can really do that anyway. You'll get 2 orders out of that. So that one's interesting, but probably not great. This no Overwatch one is reasonably solid, I suppose. Although who's going to be overwatching your Scion unit that has 5 redundant guns in it anyway? Arguable when you can just deep strike another unit there after it as well. Hard to say. And then Advanced Augury is, a bit meh, I think. And between Advanced Augury and the Triple Order, that's kind of covers Leontis's role as well, potentially. So, interesting. I think a bit hit and miss on these enhancements. They are kind of, well, I was going to say they're cool, but they're okay. I think a lot of times historically we've seen the Advanced Augury get printed. Like a lot of the new detachments, I feel like have redeploying them. No, Overwatch, this first, second, third deep strike ability has been, we've seen that before. The triple order thing I think is nice. I would like to see some more creativity around here. Just gonna point it out there. I think -1 damage for Necrons is like 15 points. Or maybe it's a 20-point enhancement. But kind of crazy. I think fallback and shoot is a 10-point enhancement for Necrons. Yeah, not really sure how that internal balance happened. Okay, the enhancements. Now there is some payoff for playing these units, definitely. Okay, 6-inch deep strike. Now, I have a sneaking suspicion that when this detachment was written, this was probably a 3-inch deep strike stratagem. Um, and mate, if you could 3-inch deep strike a huge part of your army every turn, that would be absolutely broken. But no, it's gone back to 6 inches now, which I'm not really sure is super relevant. You can move block some things, but a lot of the times I think playing this attachment, you're going to want to reuse your Scion units as much as possible because now you can't reinforce them. You're going to have to play a little bit more careful with them, I think. So you're probably going to be taking the command rod and issuing yourself maybe +1 rapid fire and then +1 save a lot of the time because going to want to keep your unit around for a later date. So the belly cozier drop is interesting, maybe more applicable on a 5-man unit that's cheap, still only 60 points. It is locked to infantry units that have deep strike, which I think is basically 3 data sheets as well. So it's pretty limited, and it is deep strike limited as well. Infantry limited there as well. So difficult to see the payoff on that one, I think. I'm just going to double check just to let you guys know. One moment. Deep strike. Sorry. Yes, Command Squad, Scions, Aquilons, and the Hades Breaching Drill. So you can't target the Hades Breaching Drill. Okay. 6-inch deep strike, the Hades Breaching Drill. Sick. Okay, so interesting, but I'm not sold that this is actually that great of a stratagem. One thing that is interesting, though, is that you can grenade off this because you can deep strike within 8, and then you can grenade as well on top of that. So that's potentially good right there as well. Certainly good for doing secondaries and keeping your opponent honest in the backfield, but screening 6 inches is not super difficult, I don't think. It's good to always have the option to be able to do it, though. Definitely a solid stratagem. Okay, this stratagem is really good, though. Firing Hot. This kind of reminds me of the Overcharged Las Fusel stratagem that Kassakin used to have, which is when you do like 6 mortal wounds, which is really busted. This is exactly what Scions and Kassakin needed, was going from strength 3 -1/1 to 4 -2/1. And it basically does that on all of the hotshot weapons. Now, there is the the Aquilon sniper rifle that I don't think gets that. But with this stratagem, it really makes you want to play these hotshot volley loadouts on your Kassakin or your Scion. So with the Scion squad, you get triple volley guns. So it's 15 shots at 5-2-1, which is really solid. And then all the pistols basically get +1 to wound as well and go to 4-2-1. So you're basically getting +1 to wound on all of your guns and +1 AP. For 1 CP, super good. I mean, that's A+ S tier stratagem for sure. Okay, now, spoiler alert, we didn't get fallback and shoot in this detachment. A bit of a shame, but we did get advance and shoot. Fire and relocate is really good. Use it in your shooting phase, so you can see what your advance roll is first initially, and then you can decide if you need to kind of use a stratagem in the shooting phase, or if you didn't get the distance to do it. But this is really powerful, not only because of what it does on the field, but because your opponent now has to play around a mixed variable movement. So your tank commander could maybe move 19 inches and shoot. Really, really good. So 1 CP here, absolutely fantastic. S-tier stratagem. Once again, Necrons get that for their entire detachment. Your shooting phase. Just after an Astra Militarum unit, this is called Servo Designators? Designators? Maybe I just made an idiot of myself. um, this basically is 1 CP. After you've shot an Astra Militarum unit, select one unit that you shot or targeted or end hit, and you get ignore cover against that. Now, there is a key caveat to this. You have to be visible to your unit. So what I really thought when I first thought I would use this was just stick an mortar team at the back, pay 1 CP, hit them, get ignore cover on that unit. This is still really, really good though. A lot of the times you're going to want to string your units out, shoot all the special weapons one way, and then on the other hand, or there's a better use of it in a second. On the other hand, shoot one unit another way, then your drop squad is going to come down with like +1 to wound and +1 AP and strength, and then shoot that unit with ignores cover. What this combos really well with though is Gaunt's Ghost actually, because you can trigger this with the Gaunt's Ghost long range shooting, still get loan up, and then after that get your ignore cover, and they can drop back down, come up, come down, which you're going to want to do as well in this detachment. I think really cool. Aerial extraction. All right, this is the generic uppy downy thing. Uppy downy one thing with deep strike that is not within engagement range. You go back into strategic reserves. So this is where I was talking about the 1 CP stratagem where you could use it for the enhancement, and 50% of the time this is just going to be the enhancement. So this is actually quite powerful, and I think as time goes on, when people play this attachment, the playstyle is going to become more of how can you uppy downy 2 or 3 Scion squads throughout the game, and use like standard Lehman Russes to still play the game, and then in addition get more repetitive value out of those Scion units rather than running a squad of 60 Scions and et cetera, et cetera. I think it's better to focus on getting value out of 2 or 3 of them, and then really try and use them in key flanking positions. Hit them in a position where they don't get super good value, but at the same time, you're going to be able to reuse them with the uppy downy because then you can trigger the +1 to wound again. Nice. Okay, on my position. This is a remake of an old stratagem. Really cool. Uh, you use it at the end of your opponent's fight phase. So you cannot use it in your fight phase. So a lot of people thought you could run and charge something, then on my position on your turn, you can't do that. One regiment from your unit from your army that's still within engagement range. Roll the d6. On a 2+, your enemy unit suffers d6 mortal wounds. Then your unit suffers 3d3 mortal wounds. When you think about this, on a 2+, if you've got maybe one unit alive, then okay, you're probably going to want to use it. But you're going to roll an average of like 3 mortal wounds, then you're going to take an average of 6 for 1 CP. So it's kind of debatable how good this is. If you're up against something like a Telamon or you're against a big tanky unit, then yeah, maybe it's worth doing. But it's a pretty hard sell for me. There is a unit I'm going to talk about later in the member section video that you can use this with, and that I think kind of combos well with it. But even then, I think there's a suite of good stratagems. Remind you, we've still got the core stratagems like CP reroll, smoke, grenade, tank shock that are still really, really good and are obviously better than, for example, on my position. I think it's probably better than the 6-inch deep strike. Okay, cool. That's the detachment. So, the $1,000,000 question, do I think it's better than the current detachment? Believe it or not, I think it's reasonably close, and time is going to have to tell. This detachment, I would say for the time being, is stronger than the current detachment, but it really does depend on how the meta shapes up as well. I don't think the correct way to build this is to play 60 Scions or 70 Scions or even 50 Scions. I think the correct way to play this is more around the range of playing like 25 Scions and then playing the 3 command squad units, perhaps. You still want your backbone to be Lehman Russes, tank commanders, and mission play units, because that's actually one of the strongest parts of Guard. Tank commanders and Lehman Russes are super well costed for their durability and output, and you've got a couple of supporting stratagems here now that help that as well. For example, strip cover is really good because you can split shot, strip cover on the one unit you want to shoot with your Lehman Russ battle tanks, then you get AP1 ignore cover across the battlefield. That's really, really good combo, for example. And Lehman Russ battle tanks innately reroll ones to hit. Now, there is one caveat on that, is that now you may not play Leontus. Well, you may just decide not to play Leontus. So in that case, then, how are you going to get orders on these tanks? don't have access to Grand Strategist in a position where you wouldn't have Leontis, which is where you would want it. So are you playing long range shooting, or are you playing more tank commanders at close range? Lots of stuff to explore. It's really going to depend on how the meta shapes up on this one, but Scions do hit hard, and +1 to wound is a really, really powerful ability for sure. Now, Armor of Contempt has just been nerfed as well, so follow-up shooting is going to be really powerful on that as well. The one caveat I would say for this is that these Scion units are pretty expensive. To get a Torx Prime is 90 points, and then a Command Squad inside is going to be 70, so it's 160 already, plus Scions are going to be 220 points for a 10-man Scion unit in a Torx Prime. That's with the rerolls to wounds, fire support. Well, whether or not that will do, much damage back, it's yet to be seen. But it's I think it's important when you are looking at building this to just consider: is it really worth it to be doing all this fun mega tricksy stuff, or should I just be trying to get the best common parts out of this detachment whilst running the same standard back end of Guard as well? There we go. That's been my takes. I'm really looking forward to playing it. I will probably be playing this detachment at Nottingham coming up in January. Really looking forward to it. I've had to order some models, of course, and I've got a little bit of painting to do. But I'm looking forward to using my, hopefully 20 Kassakin, but probably 10 Kassakin at the very minimum, because I think they're going to be really fun. Mine are painted really well. So a bunch of my infantry I'm going to be able to get back out again. So really looking forward to that. And some new painting as well on top of it. So yeah, I think this is a really fun detachment. It's powerful, and it's got a lot of options to play everywhere. And it also allows you to just keep playing your regular tanks. You still get advanced and shoot, which is really going to be super handy for like multi-melters, for example. So, rapid ingress, a tank commander, or a Lemuros battle tank, multi-melters in with advanced and shoot. Super nice on an objective. Really awesome. All right, guys, that's been it for me. If you enjoy the content or you're an avid Guard player, we do have the member section again, of course, and I have coaching for Guard as well, which I'll be doing an intake for in January. So if that's interesting to you, then feel free to get in touch at 40kfireside@gmail.com. There we go. Thanks, everyone. Peace.
Thank you for listening to the 40k Fireside. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, drop us a comment, check out the YouTube members area, and we look forward to seeing you again next time by the Fireside.